Hello and welcome to on the
Hello.
Perc Talk. We'll talk about perk stuff and hidden things, and not people though, because we like people.
Chuck digger,
No.
Chuck digger.
Chicken it,
Can't
that,
hit people.
chicken it, that, chicken it.
Boom crash.
There we go. So,
Star.
this is episode 6 of the Perc Talk, and today we're just doing a recap of finals perk stuff. And joining with me, as always, is Will, and then we also have Zach with us, a non-percussionist who has done percussion type things.
Yes.
But just to add some variety of thought process to some things, he may come up with some stuff that we don't know. I mean, if he's wrong, we're just gonna be like, "No, that ain't right." But
Shut that up.
yeah, we
Wouldn't be the first time.
Would not be the first. He's used to it a lot.
That's fair.
But yeah, so there's a kind of a quicker recap of the percussion style stuff because that race was just as hot, if not hotter, than the race for gold, silver, and bronze, which bronze didn't happen. But,
Still mad.
if you want to hear more about that, watch episode 10 of On the Back Hash, where we talked about all of that stuff. So, Will, where do we want to start? Like, do we want to talk about all the finals groups, or do we just want to really kind of talk about what we thought happened? Because it got really interesting going into it. Because I think me and you both thought, and I think Zach did too, in his prediction earlier, that we just thought SEV was gonna just take it. Because
I honestly think a lot of people thought that in general. Like, as much as they probably wanted other groups to win, I think they just felt and knew SEV was going to do it. And here's the thing: it's theoretically SEV probably should have done it. They had the tools and they had everything they needed to win, but like we said in the beginning of the season, man, this was something that was unprecedented, at least from a long time, where there was no clear-cut winner from any group. Speaking percussion, that is.
Yeah, it seemed like it was I don't even say it seemed like it was a two-man race, because we just assumed that SEV was going to be part of the formula. We knew they were going to be part of the formula. And I think at first we all thought it was going to be BD that was going to be the one that they were going to be battling with all season because they tapped him early. And in fact, I think on their head-to-head at the beginning of the season, they literally kept swapping back and forth, like show to show. One would win, and then the next show the other one would win. Yep. And then Boston came into the picture and said, "Oh no! Oh no!
Wait a minute.
We got something to say about this," and kind of shook the world up, and then they kind of got in on the mix. Mm-hmm. And then Blue Coats are like, "Y'all just keep doing what you're doing.
Yep,
we're just gonna hang out and we're gonna strike when the iron's hot." And they popped up and they won a big show with the major players there. But they never
basically the top 8.
Yeah, but they never won it again until, honestly, they needed to, which was finals night. So, just kind of recapping, I don't have the full averages, but we'll talk about finals night. But the way drums fell finals night, and we can give like little quick takes about these groups as they went through. But Colts ended up 12th.
In finals.
This is 12th in finals. I don't know what their final average was, but they ended up 12th at the finals.
Wait.
That book was really well written.
Oh, wait. Sorry. No. You're right.
No. There was 12. Yeah. That book was really well written. Very good percussion design. I think it did what it needed to do to keep the core where they wanted them to be. And some people would be like, well, they finished 12th and a lot of other captains finished 11th. Yeah, but the Perc trophy and the Perc groups this year there was some good stuff being done. Mm-hmm. For sure. Troopers Percussion finished 11th with a ninth place finish in content. So that's pretty big for them.
That's pretty real big.
Mm-hmm. Achievement score was last. You can credit some of that to just the hype of being in finals, being happy to be there.
Yeah.
And such of that nature, because that is a big moment. Sometimes when we're excited, we kind of tend to overplay on some stuff. So that might have been the case there. But still, all the percussion groups cracked 90, by the way. Nobody scored under a 90 that night. So that's what's awesome. Phantom finished 10th in drums. Manners was 9th, but it was a close because content was 11th. So that's comparatively, that's pretty low content, but they achieved very well. So, one of the few things when we talk about that type of stuff is, how much do you reward the group for playing their book well when it's not as hard as everybody else? And they were one of the few groups that night. Kind of looks like they were one of a couple groups that night whose achievement score was higher than their content score.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, Blue Stars was 8th in drums. Cavaliers was 7th. That front ensemble is just smoking.
Mm-hmm.
If they can get that battery back up to old glory, I think they'll be battling for the Sanford unit very soon. Cadets, the other group that scored higher in achievement than content, was 6th. Very cool book that they're playing. Achieved it well.
Yeah.
I really thought they had a really good finals run.
They did, and I'm glad that they were able to clean a lot of that up, because I know we did a video on them, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed the notes. I just do that a lot of stuff was real loose at that time, so I can't remember exactly when that video was taken, the day of that video, but from then to finals, I mean, yeah, they were one of those groups who definitely was like, and we're giving it everything we got tonight.
So, kudos to them. Then you had Carolina Crown finishing 5th in percussion, which is along the lines of where they probably had been anyway. Yeah. It just seems like it hurt way worse because of what the core is trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So there. I think the surprise of all the finals week, which we'll get into that a little bit later, but Boston was 4th that night. With their achievement score was a letter higher than their content, which the big argument with them was, and we said this a lot, but we're going to say it again. The big argument is their battery book is probably the hardest in DCI. We agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, there are other things that go into it, which we'll talk about later. Finals night, Blue Devils were 3rd with a high number, achievement over content as well with them, and it was close between the top 3. We talk on 1965, 19.7, 19.75. So
I just did some quick math here.
Okay.
So the averages over the 3 nights. Crown had a 19 average. They were actually 6th on semis night. Cavies were
that's right.
on semis.
They did.
After them, Boston was 4th over the course of the 3 nights with a 19.3. Then next was SCV with a 19.55. So we put them 3rd. Then BD 19.6, and then Blue Coats were 19.617 or 6166, whatever, 7. I just rounded it up a little bit. So the thinnest of margins for them. And it's kind of like, they scored the same score prelims and semis, 19.55. And then they won on the 3rd night, and they just kind of let everybody else beat up on them and just did their thing, like we've been saying. They kind of let everybody else beat up on each other and take each other out while they were the
sleeper
that
nobody was talking about.
Yeah.
Went under the radar, so to speak.
And just kept being consistent.
Yeah.
To round it out, finals night, so BD third with a 19.65. They were third in content, but second in achievement. Santa Clara Vanguard was second finals night with a 19.7. They were first in content, but third in achievement. So some of that dirt probably popped out. And I don't think they watered down their book at all, even with the kids that they had. Which
and if they did, it is very much unnoticeable.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then Bluecoats wins final night, which ultimately put them ahead for the Sanford. They were second in content, but first in achievement that night, and had a 19.750. So, lot to digest there. Before we get into that, though, first of all, a couple of groups that I just want to shout out to. I thought Madison Scouts had a very good percussive year.
Yeah.
Some of their stuff, especially at the beginning of their show, was just really cool, really innovative. I thought. I think it just the content just could never push them any higher. But I liked what they played. And sometimes people just consider content just difficulty, but I think the arrangement of some stuff sometimes can push you over to content as well. So shout out to them. Like we said again, shout out to Coates. Just very good book, very appropriate book for what they were writing and stuff. Cavaliers, front ensemble, as always, enjoyable to watch. Cadets, it took me back to, early 2000s and all that stuff with all that notes. Just some unsung heroes that people weren't talking a whole lot about, but that had some really, really good seasons and really good books. So, all right. So let's get into the meat of this. So what happened? Because that's what a lot of people are going to be asking. I'm probably still trying to figure out is what happened. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. My thing with Boston is what happened is a number of stuff. I think one is mainly the stuff that we have been talking about all season. I was like, the front is just not up to par to the battery. While the front book is very much enjoyable to watch because I thoroughly enjoyed the podcast that we did on the front alone and enjoyed the notes and the music they were playing. But at the same time, you can also feel and see the different reactions that we had between the front and the battery individually. And it's night and day. So in retrospect, that hurt them the most. And a lot of people just can't get past that. I was like, you got to understand how balance works. You got to understand how percussion works. I was like, it doesn't matter. I was like, they could have played even harder book and still lost. You cannot just have one section being the best. And I think we've even dissected a little bit as like in some spots, the tenor book may not even been as hard as the snare book. And I don't think people really looked into that. I was like, because if you really go back and when people watching Boston, they're really talking about the snare line. I was like, think about it, because how many of you truly made posts or comments or tweets or whatever about the tenor line specifically? Or are you just going to say the whole battery because you just didn't know, or you weren't that type of person who pays attention like that?
Just from what I see, just in general, snares always get all the love to begin with.
I do. There's a tier factor.
And yeah.
Because it's always like that. It's like that in indoors, a tier factor, because it's always going to go snare, tenor, bass, cymbals. It's going to go marimba, vibes, electronics, auxiliary.
Yep.
So it's a thing that people have to know that, okay, you can look at the snare and line and all you want, but you still got to understand that it's the battery. Even though we say it's percussion, it's still battery. So therefore, you must look at all sections that battery provides. If there's a cymbal line, you still got to look at them. You got to look at
Yeah.
SCV Similine. You got to look at Madison Scout Similine, the Colt Similine. You got to look at all these Similines because they're part of the battery as well. So if you're going to say the battery is fire, are they? Or is the
Or are you talking
section
about the
fire?
snares?
See?
Yep. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good snare line, but I guess because I'm March bass, the appreciation for a solid bass line.
Oh yeah.
Like, you got to have hands to play snare, but you have to have 4 or 5 people thinking with the same brain.
Because theoretically, the bass part is the snare part.
It's just split up between 4 people,
Yeah,
which is ridiculous.
Literally for Boston, that bass line, and I don't even really hear a lot of people talking about their bass line.
Yeah.
Because
bass line don't ever get love.
That was the one thing that I noticed. It's like, well, yeah, the snares are playing all this stuff, but the battery's literally playing the same thing.
Yep.
Because, and that's the one reason that makes it pop for me was that the bass line was doing their job.
Yep.
So it's just one of those weird things. It's just like, and like we said, we get it.
Yeah.
We understand it. And I'll probably say this a few times in this video, so I'm going to keep count. 1, we're not saying we don't like Boston. We're not saying that they weren't
not
good.
Saying it.
Okay,
not at all.
Good grief. Because
they are
we've
a
been
favorite
seeing that. Because like right now, the Twitter fingers and internet and social media heroes are people just hating on Boston. No, nobody's hating on Boston.
Nobody.
We're learning. You have to learn how to see things from an objective standpoint. That snare line was fire. They didn't play very well finals night. I didn't watch prelims and semis.
No.
But finals night they didn't play as well as they normally do. That's not even saying they're playing bad. They just didn't play as well as they normally do. And when you have that tight of a competition between those top 4 drum lines or top 4 percussion sections, you can't do anything wrong. You cannot.
That goes along with my second thing that I was saying. Exactly what you were saying is you can't mess up. And I think people also who become fans don't realize that these groups are taking major gambles doing this difficulty. I was like, this is why BD gets so much hate. But at the same time, you literally cannot say BD is not doing difficult stuff. You can't say it. They are just masters at how they're doing it. But that's something different. But for now, with Boston, when you do a show that is that difficult, you cannot make any mistakes because the judges are going to tell you, if you put it in there, it better be clean. Period. You hear it all day, every day, indoor, everywhere you go. If you put it in there, it better be clean.
And you will hear BD people say, yeah, towards the end of the season, they will start taking the host to stuff. Yeah. They will. Like you hear them say that, because one is is it worth doing all of this stuff if it's going to harm the core? If it is, we don't need to do it because do not forget the percussion is a part of the music analysis score, and those music analysis judges sometimes are like legit percussionists too. So if they're exposed and they're not doing their job, now you're getting dinged in 2 captions. Yeah. So they have to be very smart about how to do that stuff. And BD's just like, you know what? We don't need to do that. Let's take this 7 out and make it a 5. Right. Like they're going to be smart enough to do that type of stuff. And Boston went after it, and you have to give it to them for going after it. They really did. And it was a great book. I just think one of the cool things about DCI that high school groups may not get is you will see the same judge multiple times in a season. And some shows are built for early reads. Some shows are built for late season reads. And I think as judges got to see these top 4 they started to realize like this group's doing these things and this group is doing these things, and you can start to separate them, and spots started getting flip flop. Because all the three of those judges that judged finals weekend had seen Boston multiple times.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, because I even think about with the group that I work with, when we go and see the same judges at the same shows every year, whether they mean to or not, sometimes they make a comment, well, I saw this last week and I really like or it's either it was a lot better last week, this spot worked really well and it didn't this week, or it's the opposite where they're like, oh, much better than last week. Thank you for, changing this or doing this. So I can definitely see how on first read, when you see and hear Boston, you're like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
And then by
we
the
all
third
did
or
it.
fourth,
Yeah.
I did the same thing, like
all
not
did
in the percussion element, but the first time I saw Crown, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But then by the fourth or fifth time you see it, you're like, okay,
yeah, what you gonna do
this
now?
isn't working for me anymore, or
need something else.
yeah, Boston's losing it on this section right here.
Yeah,
and
you
this
start
and that. So
the more you start, the more you see a show, and this is one thing I've learned this year just from doing this podcast is as we've paid more attention, the more you watch the show, the more analytical and critical. I hate to use the word critical, but like you get about the shows. So now you start to see it, and then like, okay, what is this happening here? You start to notice stuff a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then you notice the changes that they make that are beneficiary as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just thinking of an example when a couple of years ago when Blue Stars did this the circus show, they had the one thing where they did where they hit the hammer and the thing shoots up to hit to ring the bell, the carnival game. It was way over on like the 30-yard line. Well, then like the next week or the next show, they had moved it and centered it on the 50, and it just made so much more sense. And just like you see little changes like that, and then you hear changes in the book, whether it's brass book or percussion book, and you're like, like that one liquid blue coats this year where they took out that one just little section and only repeated it twice versus 3 times, and that made a world of a difference.
Because we do that in the percussion world a lot anyways. It's like something that really wows us, like Boston did. It's like after a while, because like all three of us just said, like we were all like, oh my gosh, holy crap, Boston, like all these notes.
That's what y'all gonna do right now?
Yeah, and you're so into it and you're so like amazed. And then like I said, for most of us percussion people, at some point we turn around and say, we put the brakes on, but like, skirt, what is that front doing now? Because you're so blinded by other stuff. You're going back into realistic critical mode or whatever, and you're like, okay, what is the other sections doing? Because if this is this, the rest of it's got to be crazy. And then when you go look and you're like, oh, yeah, now stuff starts to get in perspective, and now you're like, this is cool and all, but this ain't gonna be SEV.
Yeah, it's not
to a group that that's going to do this ain't gonna be BD. This ain't gonna be whoever. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, I don't think these people understand. I was like, this is fantastic. They've thrown down some notes. This is by far the hardest thing I've seen this year or previous years so far. But whatever. In the end, I was like, this ain't gonna work. And I think I told Cedric and them while we were there, I was like, I think pressure got to them as well because it's finals night. And just like we said, when you do something that's so unyielding to what you can do, it can sometimes make you a little bit more nervous. Or I feel like they went into finals or went into these 3 days and overthunk everything because they knew it was like everything was on the line. Like they were so like right there of getting or possibly winning that they overthought everything to be precise. We got to make sure these threes under this paradiddle come out clean, or, whatever whatever their mind goes through. And sometimes that can have a negative effect because you can't go the whole season being cool, calm, and collected and try to come in the finals and then be all tight. That can backfire on you. No, do what you've been doing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that could be said for the whole core.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a completely different game when you have a target on your back.
Yep.
And people were cheering for Boston this year. You know,
Yeah.
people like
I sure as hell was.
like like Perc wise or brass wise or wins wise. Like
I wouldn't
they
mind
wanted
if
the
whole
core.
won.
Yeah, they wanted
Everything.
the core, and those kids are trained to be ready in any instance of the word. And like we always say, by any other means, like that was just a really freaking awesome show. But man, when you're trying to be a champion, whether it's a full core champion or the color guard champion like they were, or percussion championship, that mental mind state, you can't force anything.
Mm-mm.
You can't try to be different. And I think it appered, because I'm not in the mind of that or the psyche of that group, but it just appeared that they were trying really hard to do it. And sometimes I tell my groups, you can try too hard in this activity.
Yep.
You can.
Because if it's one of those things, if you don't rehearse that way or practice that way, you will mess up. So trying too hard is the exact same thing as something that you did not practice. Did you
can't
try too hard at rehearsal?
Yeah. And that's to clarify. And to clarify,
you can't wait to turn it on at the lot.
Yeah,
you can't.
And to clarify, we're not saying they don't practice hard.
Like, no.
I'm trying to stun all.
No, I got you. No, I already know.
It's not that, but like it is a different mental mindscape when you're on that field for a reason. And you, as much as you can rehearse to practice that way, there's still that mental mindset. And when you're on that field for championships or for finals or whatever, and saying, all right, this is the one. And that can go two different ways, because we talked about troopers. We're happy to be there.
Yeah.
This is let it rip. And that's a different mindset than probably what they have in a rehearsal setting. So there was pressure on them for whatever reason, whether it was to win or to put on a good finals performance. You don't want to be on finals ticking. Like those things go through your mind, and you can prepare your kids as much as you can just to say, this is just another run. This is the same thing we've always been doing. But the one thing about band or drum corps or any music art thing that you do, once you're out there, the directors have nothing to do with it. It's on you. They can't sense. Oh, they're playing tight right now. Let me call a timeout to loosen them up.
No,
you can't do that. Once they're out there, they're out there. So,
yep,
yeah.
Once that salute hits, it's
that's why I always preach to anybody I teach. Don't wait for it. I always say, do not try something new on the field at a performance that you did not practice or rehearse. You're going to mess up. Your body is going to freak out. If you haven't practiced the ability to think quick and catch a mistake quick, or you see what I'm saying? Like if you trip, like if you haven't practiced certain things like that, you're not going to know how to react. Your body is going to freak out, and you're either going to do something wrong, forget a phrase, play too loud, mess up a note. Something's going to happen that your body was not ready for. Because if I practice my horns up the same way at rehearsal, no matter what, that it's second nature now. I don't even think about it. But if I do something random at a show, I'm probably going to freak out without, not on purpose, but your body's not used to doing that. So that's why I harp so much, especially like if kids do a solo, or if you tell them to do scatter drill, you need to go in the same path every single time.
Yep.
Don't change it up. Don't do no weird extra leg kick, whatever. Nothing. Same thing over and over and over until we get back to rehearsal. If you need to try something new or do something new, this is the time to do it. A lot of kids want to wait till the Superman cape is on. It's too late. Don't do that.
So all that to say, Boston, you had a fantastic year. You shouldn't heave your hand down
At all.
Look at that front ensemble content, because that was for the Sanford this year. That was the difference. Because when you talk about the top three, BD, Santa Clara, and Bluecoats, that was the difference. And it's not even about note density. That was the thing I was going to say earlier. Content does not just mean note density.
No, because I've been saying that all season too. I was like, just because your book is hard doesn't mean you're going to win. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't understand that either.
Okay. I would say, here's what I'll say. It's not that the other books weren't hard. It was just difficult in a different way.
Yeah.
Like I said, note density is a type of difficulty.
Yeah.
But there are also other types of difficulty that can create content. And that's what the other three groups did better than Boston.
And that phrase needs to go on with the corpse as well for folks who keep thinking BD ain't doing nothing hard. Or any
they just make everything
on hard.
They just make everything look easy. And not to get sidetracked on core stuff.
I know.
But like
throw it in there because it's similar.
Yeah, note density is not everything. Like, yes, Crown's Hornbook is very athletic and it's hard to do, but they also play in tune.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they play in tune. They balance well. They do a lot of things well other than that. Other cores do that stuff well, too. They might not play as many notes as Crown does. They might not do all the little tricks, but they're doing that stuff. It just looks and sounds different. Okay? You got to, I have my favorite cores, too. But I also like listening to what other people are doing, and I can appreciate what they're doing as well. Saying, "Oh, that was kind of slick. That was kind of slick." And so, just kind of, there's some things that got to be learned about. Just like what does content mean? Because everybody knows what achievement is. Like, was it clean or dirty? Like, but like content, it's a lot to go behind it. So. Did you say Santa Clara ended up third overall, Zach? Is that what you said?
Would have.
That is correct.
Okay, so they did end up third overall.
So when you look at the averages of the 3 nights,
talking about the averages,
they were third.
Yeah.
By 0.05.
Okay, so looking at SEV, prelims night killed them.
Yes,
that's
what it was.
Yes.
That's literally
they were
probably all of what it was.
They were third on prelims.
No, they were fourth. No, they were third. They were third. Sorry, you're right. But they were so far behind BD. They were 0.3 behind BD and 0.2 behind Bluecoats. And that's kind of a significant
still ahead of
gap.
Boston.
Still ahead of Boston. And where some people might, and this is where the thought process of like what content is for some people may not be content for others, because he had them third. The percussion judge that night had them third in content and third in achievement. But we've said from the jump that is one of the more put together percussion packages that you'll see in DCI from year in and year out.
Yep.
Their front ensemble. And here's what I'll say about the top three groups in general. So we're talking about Bluecoats, Blue Devils, and Santa Clara Vanguard. They do so great of a job of making you listen to either or the battery auto percussion, or when it's noted, both at the same time. Think about it. When we talk about a percussion, when we talk about a break for SEV, we don't call it a drumline break or drum break. It's a percussion break.
Yeah.
You ever thought about it? Same thing with Boston. It might be a snare break, but who leads them into it or who takes them out of it? It's the front. So, and then Bluecoats, just masterful job. We'll get to them later, but like they do a really good job of it's not just about one or the other. We're going to work together to do what we need to do. And then when it's their time to get out of the way, they get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they propel the music forward, but they never overcomplicate or overcompensate for what they're trying to do. And I think that's one reason why, as a composer as well as a percussionist of Wind Book, I like SCV so much because their battery book never seems obtrusive. It never seems like it's in the way of what the horn lines do. So,
because
go ahead.
Their perc is like the BD of like the overall core in the in the perc world. It's like a lot of people are the same way. They're just tired of SCV winning drums all the time, blah blah blah, and they get to crying about that. And then I was like, well, hell, y'all gonna get to crying at Boston's color guard for winning all the time next.
Yeah, it's coming.
Who's winning all the color guard trophies, huh? If it wasn't
3 in a row.
I mean, y'all gonna get mad at them next? It's like, I mean,
people said the same thing. People said the same thing about Crown's brass lines. Like,
yeah,
man, they have the best sounding B flat chord in DCI. It's just like let them. Have y'all not heard people say that?
Yeah.
I hear like they say, man, they have the best B flat chord. I'm like,
man, they play the same thing every year.
That's straight up BD right there.
That's an arranger
thing. Same thing all the time and same props. Don't Mars. Oh, okay.
That's an arranger thing.
Have the same staff.
Team. Yeah. Like
it's called consistency. Like
consistency.
Like
is the
you have a style and you do it.
Yeah, you know how many staffs are open this year?
Because when it don't work, that's when you get staff changes.
How many staff changes are happening this year?
So
that was real quick too.
Yeah,
like
I think that happened right after the retreat.
There was still fresh fingerprints on that trophy, and they were like, "Yeah, you go."
And you
did NCAA staff change on these.
You don't even ride the bus back. You gone.
But yeah, but I mean, that's the thing with SCV is I think if they are young as we think they are, then I think that's where a lot of where they left the holes open is just the consistency of, and we're talking about winning consistently. We're not talking about like this greatness consistency, but like the fact that, you know, BD would catch them one night or Boston would catch them one night or Blue Coast would catch them one night. You know, they always stayed up there, but it was just a matter of could you string together 3 hot shows in a row? And I guess prelims night, I didn't get to see in prelims, but I guess prelims night, it just wasn't, maybe it just didn't click that night as far as this, because I thought their finals night performance was hot fire.
The whole core. I mean, we said it in episode 10. The Phantom and SCV's whole core on finals night, they were top 2.
Like somebody
you go based on that run, those runs, yes.
Jesus.
Like just everything like that. Their snare feature or
in the circle.
Do the tenors play that too? Or is it just snares?
It's just snares.
Just snares. That snare feature in the circle. I was like, okay, they are here tonight.
Yeah.
Like they are not.
I commented on that early season because I really appreciated what they had the winds doing during that. Like they visually mimic what the snares doing while they put.
Yeah, I remember us the night of the premiere talking about that section and remembering how the first time we all saw that, how cool that was.
That was a brilliant section.
So, and that's just what they do. They, you know, their visual design team sets their percussion section up for success and it features them not only musically but visually in different ways because, you know, a lot of times. When you hear a feature like that, they're down front doing whatever they need to do. This was moving backwards in a circle clockwise, like
around the core. It's like, oh my gosh!
So we want to talk about content.
There you go.
You're gonna play one of the hardest. You're gonna play one of the hardest licks
most exposed
out there, most exposed licks, while marching in a semicircle backwards. What do you want? What do you want them to do?
That is the equivalent of Crown would have done it on the move.
Yeah.
SCV would have played it marching backwards in a circle around the core with props.
So, I mean,
blindfolded,
levitating a color guard member.
That's so, those, you got to think about all the aspects of what's being asked of these kids to do. And from a marching standpoint, sometimes in these features, they're not being asked to move very much. Bodywork is like standard now. Used to be bodywork was like a hot thing, but like that stuff's a standard.
Yeah.
So you don't think
if you're standing still, you're expected to be doing something.
So you don't think that if they weren't marching, that this would have been clean consistently?
Right.
Just standing there, maybe doing some body that goes along with it? No, they on the move. And it wasn't just, straight line path stuff it was hard. So once again, content comes in a variety of different ways. And we have to understand how that works.
Yeah. That's teachable moments right there. It's like try to educate so folks don't just solely speak upon their feelings. Because you gotta understand the bigger picture before you allow emotions to talk first.
This is why it's so important. I tell my percussionists this a lot. Know what the band's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, know what they're doing, because
thank you.
That will help you understand how your part fits in with what they're doing. Because it's all works together. Like, it's all meant to be a thing that works together, not to fight each other.
And that's the number one thing I tell a lot of bass lines.
Yep.
I don't care if you play
second bass. You gotta know everybody's book. I was just about to say that. You gotta know the whole book, because you know exactly where you fit in down to the millisecond. If you learn the whole book.
Because it sucks for y'all, because not only if it's 5 of you, you got to learn 4 other basses and the rest of the battery, and then the front ensemble, and then the band. So you got to do more work than a lot of
Just imagine being bass 5, learning the whole book, and you play like once every 16 measures. You're like, come on, man. They're playing all this stuff. And I'm just sitting here holding this big old thing, going boom, boom, every 25 seconds in the show. Come on, y'all. Well, learn to count and get some hands, and maybe you can move up to 3 or 4.
That part. Because I can write you.
Boy,
we can write around you.
Just enough.
Remember that time bass 3 had 3 notes the whole show? Yep.
We got away with that all season too. Anyway. So, but yeah, shout out to Santa Clara for a fantastic season this year. It was absolutely amazing as always, and man, just the competition was great. BD Blue Devils, just what can you say, man? Just scary. always.
It's. I think it has to be the scariest group.
I mean,
out of everybody.
It's the whole group, because they had like 28 returning members or something like that.
Yeah, like all of their, from what I was told, all of their vets were in the front.
Which sounded about right.
Yeah.
From what I heard from the front.
From what I heard from the front as well.
Jeez.
And if that is true, then you're looking at a whole battery that's fresh, that about one to Sanford.
One.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people all the time, it's like, y'all up here praising Boston and Boston and Boston that and Boston and Boston this.
Who we still like.
Who we still like. But you are sadly missing over on BD, because you got all them hands in Boston, and then you got all this freshness at BD, and y'all are going to, drool over what's happening there. That's why I said scary. I'd be scared of that. You're not going to sit here and slightly miss the Sanford with a fresh team like that, what the future look like for these kids?
I thought
For
they
that
were about
group.
to cuss.
That's finna be.
I'm like, oh,
What the future?
Is it going the future? But that's scary, man.
It is.
If they all stay, stay,
and you know they will,
and you know
they
all of them
will.
are gonna. You know, all of them are already in a indoor group. Like
if
they're
they
just
not,
gonna keep
they better
playing
be.
and you keep getting better.
Because whoever they go to,
Hell, if I was them, that whole snare line. All right, we're all going to go to RCC this year and just keep the group together. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Like that's fine.
And you know, kind of, and I'm slowly kind of making a theme out of this show. But like going back to content with the style of music they were playing, a lot of jazz idiom, a lot of different classical idioms as well. The idiomatic interpretation and basically means how the rhythms are set up. They play swing stuff. They play straight 16th stuff. They play all of this type of music to where their brain, it might not be as choppy as other groups, but because of all of the different type of styles that they're playing, that's where their difficulty comes from. The fact to be able to play all those different type of styles true to what it's supposed to be. And so, you know, we talked about, you know, Boston, we talked about Santa Clara, and we talked about Blue Devils. 3 completely different approaches. 3 different shows, 3 different type of modes. They're all hard in their own way. Okay? They're all content. It might not always be about note density. Blue Devils didn't play as many notes as they typically do this year. But they had a lot of brain in their show. And so, you know, people who understand, you know, music from a wider standpoint, they can see that and listen to that and be like, man, that's really hard to line up those swung 16th notes at that speed, pulling all of these, you know, rudiments and stuff on top of it. So, you know, and their pit, just first of all, shout out to whoever was like, you know what, we're gonna do our sound test with Silk Sonic.
I'm so mad. So mad.
We're gonna do that, and they switched it up a couple times, but for the most part, that's what they did. So, but yeah, just you know, just some hot moments from them. You know, that pit's always fun to listen to when they do runs. I think they have some of the cleanest runs that are understated that in DCI.
There's a lot of notes in
they do. Front. They play.
There's a lot of notes in front, and they get overlooked too much. And I don't think people are really looking at their front enough. I was like, I don't think y'all understand.
That guitar player was good too.
Yeah. Some of the stuff they playing in that front is outrageous. There's a lot of dense chords, dense notes, a lot of double stop stuff, a lot of hand-to-hand, 4-mallet permutation, whatever you want to call it. All of that jazz. It's extended. You gotta watch
literally
it,
all that jazz.
Yeah,
literally all that jazz. All them extended chords in the mallet book. It's just a lot of brain and hands
over the keyboard, jumping.
And I think they get understated because once again, they make it look so easy. But also, it fits in so well with what the band needs from them to do. The core needs from them to do. Like it's well written. I mean, we keep bringing that up. We brought it up with SCV. The book lines itself up with the horn book so well that you don't notice them until they're supposed to be noticed.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be looking for it. Some of that stuff to be like, oh dang, that's happening under here. You know, you would miss it if it wasn't there. Kind of type of deals. But no, just always solid. Like the guitar, which I'd never hear on flow because, you know, just the way the mics and stuff work. I was sitting there, I was like, wait a minute, he's playing the mallet book on guitar.
It just I know a lot of people don't like that element of things, which is a whole nother episode, but like when they get to the part with all the drums and he's in that lower register, just jun, 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 jun. Like that adds just like a completely new timbre and effect to the whole. Like you talking about a 180 mood change in that show. You're going from piccolo trumpet solo to heavy metal to jazz and all this stuff. And it's like, What do you do with that? Like,
that's
comes
straight
up
out
with
of
this?
That's straight out of my book because I am by far unorthodox when it comes to writing bass guitar parts. And because you can ask one of my kids from a school that I used to talk about, Trey Farley. You can ask him. Yeah, I just gave a shout out to the homie, and
He's a
I
cool
would
guy.
have him playing all kinds of marimba runs and stuff that made no sense to put on a bass guitar. I was like, yeah, because he would look at me as like, wait a minute. I say, I know.
You're not just playing chords. Nope.
I know what it looked like. Go ahead, yeah, go ahead. He's like, but in the end, he came back and he's like, dude, the way you challenged me to do all that stuff has improved my playing to some other level I didn't think I was going to go to. I was like, you're welcome. No, I wasn't like that, but that's just how. That's just how.
Yeah, I did that.
That's just how I was. I was like, man. I mean, I could do something that would be considered as normal bass guitar or guitar book or something like that. Even like my piano or synthesizer stuff. It's like, man, like, but why though?
Yeah,
and
it makes a difference. And not to get it on this, so I'm just gonna say this and I'm gonna drop it. But for those folks that are against like the electronics and the non-traditional percussion instruments, here's what I'll say.
Bye.
It's no.
I'm just
bad that.
kidding.
Here's what I'll say. If you love DCI, if you really truly love DCI, then you would welcome this because it's because of those things that younger people are attracted to the activity and want to do it. It's the stuff that they're listening to. It's the stuff that they're doing. So the guitar player, the auto electric guitars, the drum set players that are mic'd, anything, the freaking thing that Sam Vanguard used that year with that thing, like all that stuff. I'm just drew a blank. But I
don't even know what the thing's called.
Theremin. All of that stuff. The kids are like, that's cool, and that's what you want because if it stayed stuck like that,
they gotta
you wouldn't have it. It's got to grow.
Everything has to evolve. Everything in
you evolve or you die.
But but that's the thing. Every single thing in life has to evolve. Literally every single thing in life has to evolve. And I tell people all the time, if you don't like evolution, turn in your phone. Turn your phone in. Turn half of your clothes in.
The thing that you're using to be a keyboard hero
that you're probably listening to right now. You don't want none of that. No, you don't want that car that you sit in with the touch screens and all that stuff. That remote key start. Everything in life. You need to starve because the way we cooking food is not how they was cooking food in 1730.
All right, we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop. But that's what I'm saying. You want that activity to grow. Man. You want that activity to grow. You should welcome these things.
Yep.
You should welcome these things, especially when it's being done well.
And it's
like
it's
if
not
it was
gonna
out here
always
being
be good.
Crappy, yeah.
Evolution ain't gonna be good all the time, and it's gonna be bad sometimes. But it still has to evolve.
So
no matter what,
there's my hot take on that. All right, and then our Sanford champions, the blue coats. Listen, we discovered. We thought about this because we when we got up to Indianapolis Friday night, and we looked at the recaps from prelims and semis. We noticed like blue coats is second both nights.
Like this about to happen,
and we was like,
because I said it. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, they got second semis, and you're like, well, they get prelims, and I said they got second again. Then you was just like, wait a minute.
Yeah, pulls up recap.
My numbers brain went in and was like, wait a minute. If they win finals night, or if Boston wins finals night, they're going to win the Sanford because of consistency. And that's one of the key things about a high level activity like this and competing with the best.
Because we predicted that there's a high possibility there was going to be a different winner each night.
Winner every night.
Because we said that, and then you said it was going to come down to that average.
That was me.
Yep. Yeah. Good job, Zach.
My job is done. Thank
You
you.
did it good. All right, you can sign out. I'm gonna mute your mic now. No. but just that consistency, and then to have the wherewithal to win finals night to solidify it.
Put the hammer on the nail.
Go out there and know you got a chance, and you reach for it and take it.
And here's the thing, I'd be interesting to know: did they know they had a shot, or were they doing it for the core?
That's a hard one.
That is, because
it's a real hard one, I really don't think you can call it unless you were a part of that ensemble.
Exactly, because if you're them in the way that they're built, you would think we're going to put the best performance on so we can put our core in the best position to win.
That's the most logical answer.
You know, and it just so happened that finals night performance for them rewarded them with a Sanford.
But then you think, just like you asked, you think, well, I mean, like I said, they were the sleeper group. So you think through the season, what if you looked as a staff and said, hey, have you been paying attention to what we've been doing? Like, and you were just like, we got a shot at this. And then so maybe you talk to your group, maybe you don't, but as a staff, you're talking and you're just like, man, dude, if all we gotta do is just maintain this, or you know what I'm trying to get at? It's like you telling yourself, dude, I think we got it, because I don't want to say something like nobody was talking about them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say that, but it feels like
people
like
were talking about them because they won that region,
right? People have been talking about them, but I don't feel.
But then they got beat again, so just people just pushed them back again.
It's like when if you compare them to Boston, like they weren't talking about them like people were talking about Boston.
No,
that's kind of what I mean. Like they
weren't talking good for that.
No, and I think it's like the staff kind of, I don't know. That's why I said I don't think you can answer that unless you were literally in the ensemble, because the staff could have just been like, hey, they ain't saying nothing about us. Everybody else is fighting. BD's fighting, SCV's fighting, Boston wants to fight. But they're not talking about us. Because think about it. I ain't gonna lie, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking to think Blue Coast was gonna get it. I knew that I knew they were in a top 5 conversation.
Yeah.
They were definitely there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I just still, I don't know, something said to me, SCV's gonna win. SCV's gonna win. And then when BD won, I was like, okay, they've been going back and forth anyway, so I'm not even gonna be crying to BD win, because that's not even surprising to me.
Yeah. I think the reason why we didn't expect Blue to win was because we seen how the core was getting, as a whole, was probably getting judged. And I think we just kind of associated it across the board, because they were, a lot of the shows, the Perc was sitting about 3rd or 4th most of the shows. And then, like I said, they popped a win and then they fell back down again. So it was just like, well, I just don't think it'll be enough to be considered for that. But they just kept grinding, and to kind of bring it back full circle with the content again, there were probably some of those people that look at their book, especially their battery book, and be like, excuse me, hold on, and look like, well, their book's nowhere near as hard as that.
No.
So how did that even happen? But look at that front, and then you really got to look at what that front and that battery were being asked to do simultaneously. It was just,
we already did it on them.
Outstanding. And somebody brought this up earlier. I forgot where I read it, but talking about, it was a post that Calvin made. Shout out to Calvin one. Just talking about how that snare feature always lined up with that guy.
I noticed that a long time ago, because it reminded me of something that we did for the Warnies group indoor line, when we wrote a break to the audio, or to like an audio phrase. Like ours was more like call and answer, but it just reminded me of that. And I was like, the more I kept watching it, I was like, I guarantee it's like they wrote this section to the quote.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I was like, it lined up so fantastic.
Did it in Kinetic Noise too?
But it was more than just that guy at the end when they do the snare shot and the stick out visual. That whole phrase is flowing with the words and everything. I was like, this is the Perc version of Color Guard. I was like, this is the most lyrical flag phrase I've ever seen.
But like, that type of stuff, talking about content, that's freaking hard.
That has to line up.
Because that narration had no rhythmic integrity in it at all. It was truly this flat out spoken word. So you talking about that snare solo being 1 or 2 BPMs off in either direction, and that doesn't happen.
And see,
whoever's in the front activating that sound being off 1 to 2 BPM, like you have to be.
Well, see, here's the thing: these days, a whole phrase can't feel like a metronome. So they have to split quotes within the synth player or somebody, and each key is probably 1 or 2 words or something. So like if you just did all C naturals or whatever, you're going up to C to C, each key is a phrase like the, A, I, am, B, or maybe it's like that cat is doing, or the next note is 4 words or whatever. So like you said, if that person isn't hitting those notes properly on beat, listening back, because that guy doesn't line up at the end, we don't get that, the peak of that phrase or the end of that enjoyment, man. Because I was like, I feel like they nailed that every single time.
Because if that guy doesn't line up, you go from hearing that and going, oh, to hearing that and going, oh. Like, it's that fine of a line.
Well, here's the thing, though. If it doesn't line up, it still works. Because, especially if you're reading it for the first time, you don't know that it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
True.
You're just, because that's how I was. It was the more I watched and realized that that's hitting on that every single time. I was like, that's so cool when it hits. It's the same thing as like when you're in a car, you're listening to music and you hit a bump in the road and it goes along with the music.
Or the windshield wiper.
That too. Or something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, the more I did it, the more I understood. I was like, that's so cool how that ends like that. And then come to realize, I think that's supposed to do that.
Yeah. And that's the type of stuff, that was their difficulty thing is minding all that stuff front to back between the front ensemble and the battery. And then the colors, all of the timbres that front ensemble brought out it just did everything that it needed to do for that particular show. People underestimate front ensemble writing sometimes. And I hate it because in high school marching bands, a lot of times, the front ensemble or the back ensemble, wherever they decide to put them, is an afterthought. Mm-hmm. There's no real thought put into the music that they're playing, the instruments that they're using, or anything like that. You don't see that in DCI, but the top groups like Blue Codes, they set up this sound palette that they want the core to put their soundscape on. Soundscape, sound palette, all these sound words. Mm-hmm. But like they just did such a great job with it. Like it was exactly what it needed to be. And it was difficulty in it, but it was very subtle. And then for them to have, I think they carry a big chunk of that in show when they're changing into the pajamas. Mm-hmm. Musically, the front ensemble by themselves carries the show for about a minute.
And they got to be,
and they keep you interested.
Yeah,
and it wasn't just fast runs. It was just really, really well thought out, and it's always cool to get rewarded for for the mental aspect of things, for the intellectual aspect of music design.
Yeah.
And I really think that's what Blue Coats got rewarded for, is the fact that, one, you're consistent, and two, how you're setting up the core. I don't know how their music analysis score wasn't higher. I really don't. Just how well that's all mixed together and put together. I mean, they were third in music analysis, fourth in achievement. But it's just so well done. Like well deserving, because they consistently fought. They never they peaked at the right moment. They really did. So shout out to Blue Coats, but honestly, just shout out to all the percussion sections this year. I mean, bouncing back after a couple of years off,
it's hard.
Just to do all of what you guys did, I salute you. I really do. Like, I can't, you know.
Round of applause.
Yes. So yeah. Any thoughts? Any closing thoughts from you guys? Zach?
I mean, what is there left to be said that we haven't already said about this season?
Yeah.
And as a brass player, part-time percussionist, like, there's so many good things that we, not just from the top 4 or 5 chords that we talked about tonight. Just, you know, there's little moments that I could pinpoint from every chord this season that it's like, okay, thank you, basses, or all right, snares, I see you. You know, it just, yeah, everybody.
Yeah. Will?
Yeah, it's a definitely amazing to see what is still achievable after what everybody has gone through the pandemic and everything, and how everybody came back out and was still capable of creating such mastery. And I'm mostly looking forward to seeing what adjustments groups are going to make for the next year, because a lot of people came out hot.
Yep.
A lot of people tried a lot of things, and I'm going to wonder who learned what for next year. I think that's going to be the hot take, because a lot of groups are losing a lot of people. A lot of groups are going to have a lot of returning people, so on and so forth. And to me, it's weird, because you're not going to mind a season like this, but I don't want it to be like this. Like, I don't know how to explain it, honestly. I'm not saying I want there to be one clear-cut winner, but who will BD beef their book? Will Boston balance their book more? Will SCV find some niche that nobody else is allowed to use? You know what I mean? Like,
what new instrument will they invent just for this?
Right? Are they going to build their own marimbas this year? Because the frames that they had were pretty cool. Like the yellow one for SCV, it's like, I don't know. Like Cabby's gonna come out and play the marimbas upside down somehow. I don't know, but like that instrument. Like, what changed? What did you learn? What did you learn? And what are you going to change for the next season?
I think this season should have put a lot of hope and faith back into DCI and just percussion as well. I'm, focusing on Perc talk. I know we've shifted a lot, but hey, it's part of the gig. Because a good horn line can help a percussion section win as well. Just throwing that out there.
Mm.
People may not realize that, but that's the
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, it overall, like, I think DCI's in good hands, and for the 50th anniversary from it, like, everybody brought it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody brought their A game, and I think next year, I hope it may feel like a letdown. I think there's going to be some good things that happen too.
Yeah.
Some people are going to grow, but some races are going to get tightened up because once you get a taste of greatness and what it feels like to be up there, then you want more.
Yep.
And there are going to be some cores with some groups with some vendettas.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back, so I'm looking forward to it. So we're going to wrap things up. We're still going to be doing Perks Talk. You may go back and revisit some older videos from this past season or just some old videos in general. I don't know what we're going to talk about for Perks Talk, but we're going to still be bringing that hot heat for you. As always, we're going to be doing the regular podcast on the back hash. We're going to be talking about some stuff up there too. So still be checking out and looking out for us. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We're on, I think, just about all social media platforms now.
Yep.
So you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, but that's a new one, on the back hash as well there, and Facebook for all your on the back hash pageantry arts needs. We got a little bit of time left before Spotify, and Anchor.fm. So all of the places you can find us. Like, comment, and subscribe. What are your thoughts leaving the season? Are you already having withdrawals? It's a sad time. I know we got DCA coming up. If you want us to talk about DCA, shoot us a link to a video. We'll watch it.
Yeah.
We don't get to cover it a lot, but listen, I'm down for anything. So, but this has been episode 6 of On the Back Hash Perk Talk. For William and Zach, my name is Cedric. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. See ya.
Woo!